A very warm welcome to Pete Ohs, Albert Birney, Anna de Paoli, and the wonderful Anna Werner. I'm going to be very honest, and I'm a little known for being very honest. Anna and me have been planning this panel for quite some weeks, I would say. And I was thinking, oh, it's on our last Friday. I might be super tired. Will I have questions? Will I have something to talk about? And then I just knew, of course, because I've actually been looking forward to this panel whenever we started, talking about having this panel. Because it is about the independencies or the dependencies that we have when we want to produce an independent movie, and then also to look maybe across or cross borders. So how could we find partners? That's why we have the wonderful Anna Werner here as well, to talk about does it always have to be just my home country producing a film, or could we maybe collaborate on independent movies? And then when we found your two beautiful films, we just knew we need you two on this stage to do exactly that. So in the very middle is Albert Birney. He is here with his wonderful film OBEX that is screening in our Cine Rebels competition section. And fun fact, Pete Ohs, the director of The True Beauty of Being Bitten by a Tick, is also the producer of OBEX and also the DOP of OBEX. And Albert is the producer of The True Beauty. So, that might be the reason why we have both of them here, we thought. So thank you so much for joining us from the US.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Happy to be here.
Thank you, Jule. Please also welcome Anna Werner. She's producer at Seven Elephants and currently co-producing 2 projects. She gets it from me, and Alles.
The US remake of a German film called Und morgen die ganze Welt.
Und morgen die ganze Welt, and tomorrow the entire world. Okay. By Julia von Heinz, who is a very well-known filmmaker, especially here in Munich. And we thought, what better day than the 4th of July to talk about independencies. So let's go.
Yeah, and then I just wanted to say, because you mentioned Julia von Heinz, who's also a professor. She's a director. I don't know whether the two of you have heard about her. She's a very famous female director from Germany, and she's also a professor at the university here in Munich. And Anna just took over a professorship at the university in Berlin for producing. So we thought that might be also cool to talk about the next generation and what they might be able to learn, or how they could shape the future of filmmaking. So I would love to maybe start with the two of you and how your collaboration started a couple of years ago, or quite some years ago, actually. Who wants to start?
I'll start. Albert and I are very similar aged, very similar childhoods, upbringing, all these things that when we eventually met, we had all the same references. It was really like we were already brothers or friends. It made it really easy to engage. Also, our career paths have been quite similar in that we've both made quite a few independent films. And so have all these experiences that we're drawing from for why we make films the way we do now, after having tried and successfully made films with other paths, maybe more traditional paths, that eventually we've arrived at a way that makes us happy, that is not traditional, that is very much outside the system, but still makes very cool movies, we think.
What kind of references? Because I'm not sure whether or not the audience has seen both your films, so give us a little taste.
When I saw Pete's first movie, or it was your second film, but it was your first narrative film, I was watching it and I remember thinking, this person grew up watching the same cartoons that I watched, playing the same video games that I played. It was just that feeling like the language of the movie was very similar to, you know, how I saw the world or what I wanted to see when I saw movies. So we talked afterwards, and of course, yeah, it was like, you played this game growing up? Great, I played that one. You watched this TV show? Yes, me too. And, you know, they were all just like fantasy films of the 80s, Never-Ending Story, and, you know, Back to the Future, and I could get real geeky, and, you know, Final Fantasy or Secret Amount, you know, just like video games that were in America and in the Super Nintendo era.
And so, like, as children, we had all these, I would say, very mainstream pop culture movies we were watching and loving, whether it's Jurassic Park or The Matrix or Terminator 2, Judgment Day. But that, like, those aren't necessarily, even though in our minds when we're making our independent films, we sort of think we're making Back to the Future, but we're actually making these like very art house films that are actually more of the descendant of Jarmusch or Wim Wenders or Coen Brothers, let's say, or David Lynch. But like somehow in our minds, and I think this is also sort of how we have this similarity, that we do think we're making like a normal movie, but that's just not what comes out.
I think it's absolutely necessary. You don't make a B movie as a bad movie or as a second-rate movie. No, I get it. And when you start a new project now, does it feel different, or still could you kind of keep the vibe from back in the days?
Right. So the way we first met was just through kind of like the American independent film scene. Some various other mutual friends connected us because they saw our movies and saw that we had these similarities. And then eventually at a small regional festival, actually got to meet in person. Immediately ate tacos and started coming up with movie ideas. It wasn't until years later that we actually got to finally literally work together, which it was on Albert's film OBEX. And that came, the way that sort of came about was because of the way that I had been making movies. Albert had been making movies, and we would always sort of share what our experiences were like after we wrapped. And so often I find, and Albert also found, and most of our filmmaking peers find, that the normal way of making movies is actually not that fun. You like justify it somehow by saying it's like worth it to go through hell. But I started to challenge and push back against that. And I'm like, I don't think it has to be that way. And the way I arrived at that was after making a first movie the traditional way, which is like, in America, this is a $200,000-ish film, which is considered both big and small budget, depending on who you talk to. You get a 20-ish person crew, you shoot for 20-ish days, and you make a movie. This is the normal way. For me, I didn't love it. The movie's cool. The experience of making it was not. And that made me question why I even make movies, even though I had been devoting my life to this craft. And for me, I realized I do it because I loved making videos with my friends when I was 15. That's when it was fun. That's why I have this like unsatiable urge to go out there and film things with people I like. And so I thought, as a 30-ish year old, supposedly professional filmmaker, could I do it the way I did when I was 15? And that's how I've made 5 movies in the last 5 years with this like ethos that has defined and led every single decision that you make along the whole process of making the movie. And so I was sharing about that with Albert after he had just shot this beautiful film he made called Strawberry Mansion. And he was like, if you've seen the movie, it's a wonderful film and there's so much love and stuff within it, but still he had the grind that is independent filmmaking. And he was like, what if we did it your way? And then he pitched me OBEX as an idea that he had that could be made with this very like small, fun way to make a movie. So like the way that we're always trying to do it to like keep within that place is just to remind ourselves that this is supposed to be fun.
And I just wanted to give you all a little bit of contextualization, because we have 2 filmmakers here who have shown their films at Sundance and South by Southwest, so like the biggest US platforms for independent filmmaking, and also like, you know, non-independent filmmaking anymore, even though Sundance still calls itself the home of independent cinema. So I think that would be the right moment to talk about the term independent cinema. Like, Albert, when I ask you the question, is it like, do you feel comfortable calling yourself like an indie filmmaker? What does it mean to you now?
Yeah, definitely, especially with OBEX, with this project, because it was literally just Pete and I. That was the entire crew. Pete was doing camera, sound, I was acting, directing, and that's it. And so it can't, yeah, I mean, independent, it can't get more independent than that. And, you know, and like Pete was saying, there's many different ways to make movies, and we both have done other ways, and OBEX kind of came about because I'm making another movie at the same time, but it's been 4 or 5 years because you have to get money and you have to cast and you have to get the script approved, and it just, years slip away, you know. With OBEX, it was, you're not waiting on anybody, you're not waiting for anything, any approval, any, you know, okay, you can go do it. It's like, Pete, do you want to come to Baltimore, and we'll be filming in 2 days, you know. So yes, I do consider myself an independent filmmaker, I think, you know. Someday, you know, maybe I'll have a different answer, but right now, yeah.
And how about you, Anna? How do you feel about the term independent film? Is it useful? Does it carry weight? What kind of expectations come with the label?
I feel a little less indie now hearing from you guys. I think beforehand, yes, I would have said 100%. I'm an independent film producer. I work for a small Berlin production company. We're under 10 people. We were launched with 3 directors that are part of the company, and we're not owned by anyone. We haven't been bought by anyone, so we make all our own decisions. And the way maybe I can say I started gaining more insights into the the US film scene was because Julia's film premiered in Venice, and then she started being repped by CAA. And that kind of opened up the opportunity of like, here are some scripts that could travel internationally, and here's maybe some US American cast that could be attached. And then that, interestingly enough, sparked a bit of a discussion within our company, especially with the change in the political situation and this new administration that we're all enduring under Trump. Do we really want to work with the US? Like, is that something that we want to do? And or do we want to focus solely on European independent films and keep our resources here, our valuable funding, our creative voices? And it was a lengthy discussion, but we ended up deciding no, we don't want boycott, and we want to work with independent producers, not with studios, but with independent producers. And I think there's challenges in that because the systems are super different. It's much easier co-producing with a country like France because it's financially, legally, it's just a lot more similar. But there's ways, and I think that collaboration can grow. Like, I think I was looking this up. I think it's still like under 5% US-German co-production. So yeah, there's room for growth.
We did have an American-German co-production within our program, in our co-production competition, actually, American Sweatshop, which also premiered at South by Southwest. So, and that was not necessarily a first, but a rare thing to happen. That's why we also figured it might be super interesting to chat to you guys. And I mean, I think we also kind of want to direct that question to you, but I also wanted to ask you whether you're comfortable talking about politics right now, because we've experienced that, you know, it's not that easy right now. So feel free to say no as well, but we wanted to ask you, when you read about the tariffs and when you read about, like, you know, what the president actually tries to do right now, like, did it change your way of thinking about making films, or did it actually sort of like encourage you to keep it the way you've actually been doing it all along?
Yeah, I think making a movie the way we've been making movies, it's kind of like you can just keep doing that no matter what's going on around you or in the external world, and there's a great freedom in that feeling of like, okay, at least I Pete's got his own camera, you know, I've got a camera. You can, no matter what, you can make something. And I think that at the end of the day, that's what keeps us going, or just knowing that, like, in my life, no matter what happens, I'll always be able to at least make something. I also do animation, which is something else I can do just me and my computer, you know? So, you know, and then when you look at the news every couple of days and it's just getting worse and worse, and for me, it's like the hardest thing is just like when you get that feeling of like, there's like that hopelessness, you know, where you're just like, is this even, what I'm doing, is this gonna help the world at all, or is this gonna make it a better place? And then maybe after a screening, one person comes up to you really excited, and they're like inspired, and you're like, okay, I'm touching somebody, or it's getting through all this noise. But yeah, I don't know if you've thought about the tariffs, or.
Have I thought about the tariffs? I mean, hearing about it, I mean, all that stuff definitely makes me feel sad, just because I'm an empathetic human. But the way that, like Albert's saying, the way we're making movies, we're so outside, like happily outside of all systems, really. And I remember the earlier days of trying to make movies and trying to understand, like, how does it work, how you're supposed to do it, whether it's finding a dentist to give you money, or it's finding a grant that you're going to apply for, or it's like you hear about these things like co-productions, and I spent so much time and energy trying to like figure that out that I didn't realize there was a decision that I made right in the beginning that I turned right, and if I just turned left, I didn't even need to bother with any of that. And like the first left is just like, you don't need literally almost anything. Like all the stuff that you're told as you turn right that you need, like for me, it's like, you don't need money, you don't need a script, you don't need a nice camera, you don't need producers, you don't actually even need permits, you don't need anything, actually, if you just want to make a movie. Now, do you want to make a specific movie? If that specific movie you want to make might require some other things, but if you let go of that and you just be like, no, I just want to make something, and I want to make something with some people who I like spending time with, like that path flows like water. So like the tariffs, the idea that this government has whatever, like new systems, or the idea that all the paperwork that you have to apply for to get the co-production thing to go through, and the amount of time it's going to take, and all the headaches you hear people complain about. I'm just like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
You've already made 5
yeah,
other
I made
movies.
another movie already, like while you were talking. So, and so like, and when I think about that, and the beauty of how many movies one can make, like it is really empowering, which feels good, like within me. And then I think, what if everyone was making movies that way? Like we already have too many movies. And it's like, I don't even know if people need more of our movies, really. But I do know I like making movies, and that it's a really beautiful activity, like one of my favorite ways to spend time. And I almost do like want to encourage more people to make movies. It's not that we all need to see them, but just like getting together with other people and creative problem solving and putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, telling a story that you're familiar with and you get to learn more about, telling a story that you're not familiar with and you get to learn about that. Like there's so many good, beautiful things that come from the activity of filmmaking that for me, that's one of the most beautiful things about independent, about where like we're at with technology. The fact that like we have our phones that are as good cameras. It's like cool, anyone could make a movie, but the actual good part about that is that there's no barrier to entry just to have the experience of it. Like it used to be that to get the equipment cost so much money because you had to rent it from somebody. It's like, okay, you don't have to anymore. Again, are you going to make a good movie that anyone needs to see? No, but it's going to be a document of an experience you had with these people that you're going to be able to share. You're going to be able to watch it again later, a year later, 10 years later. You're going to see who you were then, internally, externally. There are all these like good, beautiful things that come from it that I see myself being an advocate for, more so than even being like, go make a movie and submit it to a film festival or whatever. It's like, no, it's really, you already got the good stuff the moment you stepped outside and started filming something with your friends. And
many people have made movies this way before us. You know, growing up in Baltimore, where John Waters was making films in the 60s and 70s this way, and his small little band of, you know, misfits and everything. And then David Lynch, of course, with Eraserhead, and it's like, he talks about how that was the happiest time of his life, you know? He thought he was dead, which I think by that he means he didn't know what was going on in the world. And I remember being young and being like, that seems so fun to do it that way, you know. And he wasn't waiting for
He
anybody.
just got lost in the Eraserhead world for years with his like close collaborators, and it's like,
and
that's
the rest of his career, he was always talking about that was the best he ever had. You know,
You're a marketing agent for Baltimore as a second job.
Come to Baltimore, make weird movies with your friends.
I was just going to add something to that. This sounds so nice and free and fun also. I love the mindset. But to add to the tariffs, because I did encounter a little bit of fear around that. Like I remember waking up and 3 people had texted me and I was like, oh, here go 2 of my projects. And then, I mean, it kind of turned out, and I heard from a colleague in Cannes that one of the investors that was on his project, putting in private equity, which is how a lot of financing works in the US, pulled out because of the tariffs. But I feel like right now the mindset is, no, this was a random tweet. He heard about the Minecraft movie from, I guess, John Voight over a dinner, and was like, why is this movie being shot in Canada or the UK? Like, this should be shot in the US, and then said in a tweet, like, tariffs. But, I mean, the question is, like, who's he going to tariff? Because the production company is American. Like, is he going to tax the American production company, or is he going to tax the service producer who doesn't actually have the rights? So it seems right now that everyone I'm talking to, our sales agent, our co-producers, our writers, the agency, they're all saying, no, it's not going to happen, because they don't even know how.
And when Pete said this co-production thing that you have to go through, can you tell us a little bit more about it? Like when you start a co-production, what do you have to care about? And you were mentioning how different the systems are. So what do you have to bring together, and how do you keep the creative freedom?
Well, the challenge with the US is there's no co-production treaty, at least not with Germany. There's a lot of co-production treaties that exist that you can use, like with Canada or with a lot of European countries and also some Asian countries. So it's kind of up to you. And that's also a little bit of the tricky part, because US producers, there's not a lot of public funding, as you probably know. And so you gotta find people that wanna invest, either because you've got great cast or you've got a great story. And most of those people aren't film lovers that are just gifting you their money. They do want to recoup that money. And so that's really your job, to make sure that that money goes back to the investors. And I think that's where actually it becomes interesting to co-produce with a country like Germany, because it is quite privileged that we have these funding bodies that allow us to be a little less safe and a little more risk friendly with our stories. And so I've had American directors and writers send me projects, and if I feel like, yes, this is a natural co-production where we also retain rights, where we're just not service producing and giving away the so-called stupid German money, then it makes total sense. If there's creative collaboration, if there's rights and proceeds that are being shared, then that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question, because I've been hearing that term quite a bit this past week. And the term film family. And I feel like, you know, the two of you definitely are a film family, but Seven Elephants also is a film family, a sort of like group of creatives who came together to make the movies they want to make. And I wanted to ask you the question, what that term kind of like means to you, and if that's really the case in your work as well. I mean, you've been already talking about it, but to elaborate that feeling that it has as well in making independent movies.
I think whether you're making a movie with or without money, with a co-production or not, for fun or for money or for profit, it is like still hard, and it's going to be a lot of work. That's what I mean by hard. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of time and energy, and if you're doing that with people you actually don't like either, you're going to kill yourself. And like, so when you're taking on any sort of project of any scale, like the best thing is to find people you want, like that you are aligned with. I think that's where the concept of family might come in. I don't know what everyone's relationship is with their families, but I think the idea of family is that like there is this like deep trust and love and connection and understanding. It's like that's what you're hoping to find with your close collaborators, because it's going to be a lot of work. It's like very little reward, honestly. You know, the reward has to come from the time spent doing it, and so all that time spent really needs to be spent with people you like.
Yeah, I've had productions where if you just have one kind of person who's not in the family, or who feels a little bit like the vibe is off, you know, like that expression, it really can get in the way of everything. And like Pete said, it's so, making film is actually, yeah, you're gonna have fun hopefully, but it's very difficult. Like you're going against like the natural rhythm of the universe, you know? You're like stopping time, you're like creating make-believe worlds, you know, it's this very strange thing. And so you need to have the people all kind of aligned doing that together. And if someone's not a part of that family, then it can kind of steer everything in the wrong direction. Yeah.
I assume that Kelly Hernandez is part of the family.
Definitely.
Because she stars in both of your films. And yeah, we were talking about dentists and investors. And so now the actress or the actors, how are they important as part of the core team, and what do they do, for example, also to bring a film to Sundance or South by Southwest?
Yeah, well, real quick, I'll say both the other actors in OBEX, Frank and Callie, had been in Pete's previous movies. So I knew, okay, they're part of the family. I can just go right to them and say, hey, you already know how this is going to go. Do you want to come do this? And both of them were down for this style of filmmaking that's we're doing all the different things ourselves. Like, when Frank and I are in the car, Pete's behind the camera, Callie was shaking the car to make it move. You know, like most actors, if they weren't in the scene, would go inside, you know, or go in the trailer and zone out. But Callie was right there shaking the car, and Frank in other scenes is holding lights and, you know, running around. So yeah, it was important. I knew that they had already kind of been vetted by Pete. They were already invited into the family.
I kind of despise middlemen, and when I say that when making a movie, there's all these things that you don't need. One of the things you do need are people in front of the camera. You do need actors. And so I respect that and I value that. Film is a collaborative medium. I do believe the way I do it is maybe even more collaborative than normal, in that like the actors are also writers on my films. And the way that I'm doing it so small, part of that also is asking a lot of the actors for them to be very engaged. So like the actors are also the costume designers, because they're figuring out what they're going to wear. They're the hair and makeup. They are the set decorators, because when it's this character's kitchen, she's the character. I'm like, how do you arrange your table setting? Like, and then I'm like, do it. You know, it's like now they're also doing the job. But for people like me, this is what's fun. This is getting to play make-believe. So it's finding collaborators who have that same mindset, who aren't, you know, I don't know what everyone's trying to do, but I know that some people maybe have an idea in their head about what it might mean to be an actor, about the kind of career they think they want, where they want to have an agent, they want to be at CAA, they want to have a trailer when they're on set. Many an actor I've talked to who are at top levels, who have had those experiences, want to come do the projects the way I describe them, because, oh, guess what? They also are doing this because it was fun when they were a kid. And now that they're in this other way, they're actually not as engaged anymore. They're actually like removed from the set, from the fun. Everything's disconnected. And I do believe the reason to be alive is to connect, is about connection. So finding people who have already had this other experience to know that they don't want it, whether they already knew they didn't and they were never seeking it, or they had it and they realized it's not for them. Finding those collaborators who are in it for, I'm going to say the right reasons, but I'm also going to say my reasons, which is to like come together and make a thing, is hugely important for it to flow and for it to actually work.
I'm going to have Anna ask the next question, but I want to do a little bit of a promo reel, just like Albert did for Baltimore. I want to make a promo reel for your two movies, because I love hearing you talk about it. And your work and your vision sounds like, you know, you're shooting very kind of like realistic movies, but they are the opposite. They are creative as F, and they are very, very taking us to other places. They are taking us to space. They are taking us into apocalyptic scenarios on very, very different levels and in very, very different ways. And I just wanted to say that all of you have to watch both films because they kind of complement each other very, very well, I would say. And I just wanted to have that little comment in between because I just love chatting to you and how you say, like, you know, everyone does their own thing and they're adding their personality to the productions. But it's both of them are still masterpieces in the way you choreograph around those personalities. Yeah.
And as this is the part where we activate the audience. Please think of your questions while, Anna, I have one last question for you. Okay, you guys don't need any money. You don't use any budget.
I'm curious though, like how do you like ask people, like this is a 20-day fun vacation and we're all gonna make something? Like is that how does it work? Sorry, nerd question, but.
Well, yeah. When it just started with Pete and I, the budget was just Pete's plane ticket. And I didn't have to pay Pete, which was very generous, thank you. I think I did pay for his groceries for the week. That was what I could offer, yeah. And then when we brought in Callie and Frank for part 2, it was like, oh, I need a little bit of money to pay the actors. It's still very small, but they're okay with that just because it's a week. You know, they're here for a week or a week and a half.
I am very much describing it as a road trip with friends that just so happens to maybe end up with a movie at the end. These are actors. These are professional actors. So I'm not asking them to do it for free. They are getting some money. They are getting essentially what was the old SAG minimum, which is like around $200 a day. I shoot my movies in 2 weeks. So it ends up being about $2,000 per actor. Different actors are at different stages of their career and their life. And what I usually say is I don't want it to cost them money. So if they are a waiter, this little bit of money will allow them to make rent. If they already have lots of money, okay, they'll take more of my money. But sometimes
they'll get a producer credit.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes they're like, I don't really even need it. But I like to try to make it so anyone could do it, regardless of like what situation they're in. And but like really trying to really vet them and appropriately align their expectations for what we're doing, so that they are again in it, so that I know and they know within themselves that they're in it for the right reason. But like there's no one. It's not that nobody gets paid. It's that there's no one to pay, because also on my shoots I'm the whole crew. So it's literally just me and the actors.
Okay, but that's super smart. If you tell them in the beginning, make it very clear what it's going to be.
Yeah,
like then.
And I usually am trying to talk them out of it, is how I think about it. Because so often we're like trying to talk people into it and like tricking them, and then they feel tricked. So I'm like, no, it's like, you're going to be sleeping on the floor probably. Like just tell them everything. And then if they still want to do it, then, you know, they're down.
He's also acting, saving 2,000 euros. And yeah, that's another option. No, but I wanted to head towards the tax incentives. If you don't have a budget, you don't care very much about it. But here in Germany, everyone is crazy about it. We're really waiting for the tax incentives to happen for us. And I wanted to ask you why is that so? What kind of opportunities do we seek in the tax credit system? What are the risks? Because we had a similar thing or tool, instrument before. Yeah, what's your take on that?
Sure. Yeah. So this has been an interesting week. I started the FilmFest. There's a platform where all crew members always put their projects in called Crew United here in Germany. I think they have it in other countries too. And they started off with like cold hard facts of how film productions have decreased over the last 10 years. And it was kind of shocking to see because everyone's kind of been saying that and people are like, oh, it's May and I haven't got an offer yet, like what's happening? But so that was kind of a rough start. But what's exciting here right now in the film industry is that we have a new government as well, and the cultural minister just this week said that, yes, he wants to actually pass the bill for the tax incentive, and that up it a little bit and maybe even make it uncapped, which would be interesting. And I think that comes with benefits, of course, because that will attract a lot more production from outside of Germany. It'll attract more production inside of Germany. The UK has this. It sparked like skill growth. It sparked a bunch of studio facilities being built. So there's good things, but I think it has to also come with a bit of regulation, because I think we don't want to end up over-servicing like huge Minecraft movies, for example, and we don't want to have, indie producers don't want to like fight for crew, and then all of a sudden there's like crew shortages in the UK. So I think there has to be some regulation where you protect the creative voices and you protect the independent producers, yeah.
I feel like even though I make movies so outside of the system, the ideal is that there are systems that are sustainable and responsible and built for the humans to like, so that they can do things that they want to do while they're alive. Seems pretty straightforward, right? But like for some reason, not for some reason, for capitalistic reasons, it doesn't become that.
Well, I heard actually, interestingly, on a news podcast a week ago that California was all stressed about only 30% of films are being shot in Hollywood, even that's where they're all from. And then I guess they decided to now put in like 750 million to make it a little more attractive to shoot there at least. So there's also some tax incentive going on.
Yeah.
I've had a rough time people leaving to go other places overseas where there's better tax incentives. And I think, it was crazy. All my LA friends are like, there's not a lot of work. And so it's just crazy to think that that's happening in the, what's been the place, you know.
Yeah, and like they're all ecosystems, like they're all systems. They're ecosystems that are these organisms that ebb and flow, and like even like a huge influx of something is, it's like it's. I always think of the metaphor of like when you're in a car and you have your air conditioning and it's like, oh, it's cold in here, so you like turn it all the way to the heat, and then it's like, oh, now it's hot, and it's like you turn it all the way to the cold. It's like, no, you should be making like small incremental adjustments as you find what that perfect temperature is, ideally.
Pendulum that always keeps swinging to the extremes.
Like we need to slow the pendulum down, actually. Like it needs to stop swinging much.
That kind of is the world we're living in right now, isn't it?
Very much.
Are there questions in the audience? Yes, I'm going to give you my microphone.
Yeah, thanks for the insights. I was just a short question for you, and then for you one. How do you cross-finance? I mean, who pays the rent? I mean, I get it that filmmaking is just, I love to do a lot of things. It's like side projects, so that's not, here in Germany, you say that's not professional filmmaking. If you go to the tax, they will say you're not a professional filmmaker, so you can't obviously also get grants and so on. Can you just say one sentence about that?
So the first 4 of these films that I made with this, my process, I just self-financed by, I'm a freelance editor.
Okay.
And I
so
don't
you do other projects so you can afford the time to do what you really want to do.
And
right?
I don't go on vacations.
Yeah, because you are filming, and that's your vacation.
Filming is the vacation.
That makes
that's
sense.
That's where I spend the extra money on the next movie.
Okay,
and then some of the movies have made their money back, and some profit. They're made for really small, so it's not a profit that supports me, but it is at least refills the hole that I dug.
And you got your structure, so you know the next film you're going to do will end up like more or less the same area. Okay, that's cool. Very good.
So like it sort of sustains itself. I'm trying to figure out a way for it to sustain like more than just the film, you know, like whether it's my life or it's the life of the various collaborators beyond that like 2-week, you know, stipend. Like I know it's not really a fully healthy, you know, actual economy.
It's a give and
like
take, isn't it? And it's always different. But I wanted to ask Anna, because we've got a very different system here, obviously. And my question would be, how do you get in touch with new talents? Speaking of expanding the family, is it more the festivals? What kind of, you know, what crossing points do you have? Where can you find these people, or where can they find you, maybe also the other way around? Can you say something?
I think it is the festivals. I think it is weeks like this where you meet really, really interesting filmmakers, both at the beginning of their career or already super established, and all of a sudden you're, like I met Nadav Lapid a few days ago, and I've been a fan of his for like years and years and years, and all of a sudden you're talking to him, and you're like, huh. And then also you meet some people that just graduated from film school, and still trying to get to the point where I can do films outside the 3 directors in the company, but I'm allowed to, so it's just been a bunch of reading, but yeah, there's openness for that, and people send things, and then people recommend people. That's how, yeah.
And maybe I can add to that, because I remember you sending me an email about an indie filmmaker
I did.
that you wanted to be connected to. So it's really about keeping your eyes open, right? And then, you know, trying to make the network
And Julia was
bigger.
really helpful. She gave me his email address.
Data protection.
Sorry.
All related to data protection. More questions. There's one.
First of all, I want to say I really like your spirit. I find it so great because I'm an independent filmmaker from Germany as well. And it seems that you are using the creative potential of actors and actresses as well, which I find is such a big source of creativity that adds so much. And I really appreciate that people are working that way. So I really want to see your movies now. And I have a question to Anne, because I have seen some movies of Julia von Heinz, of course, and I don't remember the credits right now, but I think, I'm not quite sure, did you take public film funding or not? And if you did so, what does it still make you an independent filmmaker? Because didn't you have people talking into your projects then, if you took the money from the film funding?
No, the funders, they're not involved creatively, which is really nice. If you get a broadcaster on board, then yes, the commissioning editors will want to see cuts, and they'll want to see the script. So there you give away a little bit of independence for that money and that distribution. And then also sales companies and distributors sometimes. But I feel like not so much. It's really when you have investors that require that, then you become a little less independent. And what, for me, the definition of not being an independent production company is if you're bought, if you're like a daughter company of like Konstantin, for instance, or something, or you belong to a huge conglomerate, and then you really have to bring your numbers and you have to answer. Yeah, yeah. And I always, yeah, I used to work for Komplizenfilm, and I always really admired like Janine Jakowski, who got offers from everyone and got offers to be like the head of some studio or something. She was like, nope, my freedom is my greatest good, and that's why I make these films, and I think that's what I try to live by as well. It's easier with a broadcaster. It's easier if you attach, still in Germany, even though things are changing. But it's been done before. Yeah, you can occasionally also get it without a broadcaster.
And just a few questions, a small one. Do you produce also just feature films, or also like miniseries or series or short films indie-wise?
So far, Seven Elephants has only done feature films, but we have a series in development, and I'm submitting a funding application right now where I'm putting in one short film. And there's openness, and I'm actually interested in short form content as well. I don't know if you guys are interested in that, like micro series. I think with everyone, like I heard this really interesting statistic, like people are watching more than they've ever watched, but the screens are changing. So they're not watching it on linear TV, they're watching it on their phones. So I think that's something that we can cater to. And like if there's a few months and you've got 20 days and you've got a filmmaker that has the cool mindset of like, yeah, I want to make something happen, then yeah, maybe do a series that the whole series is 2 hours. Like I think that could be really interesting. Yeah.
What's a micro-series for you?
So I think the way it's defined, it's just like, yeah, one entire season is like 2 hours or less. So the episodes are super short. And then you have like YouTube Shorts where you can distribute it, or online other like TikToks, I guess.
Just to cut in quickly into the conversation, for example, Dairy Girls, the series by Lisa McGee, is one of these short seasons, because a season has 6 episodes and each episode is like 20 minutes long, and you can basically go through an entire season within 2 hours. And it also lends itself to really great comedy and to very focused episodes that go through focused narrative while also developing the characters in a very, very good way. So for everybody that is looking for a good, funny sitcom, Dairy Girls is the way to go.
There's also a micro series thing that maybe is what you're Dairy Girls.
My dad loves that, I think, yeah.
There's a micro series thing that is, the episodes are like 2 to 5 minutes long. And it's like, you're cooking through the story. It's essentially each episode's a scene. They're kind of dark in the sense that like it feels like soap opera content, like it's kind of trash. But like, and it like, I don't know, like I could start to get on a soapbox around like how phones are bad. And like, we're going to live our lives like here, not connected to other people. It's like, I actually don't want to cater to that actually at all, you know, but like it is a thing that's happening, and as we are creators who have stories, and yes, telling stories is good and important, like we're trying to like engage with it and then probably like kind of like pull it back over to like from the dark side, but that is another thing that I'm aware of too that is existing, these like micro series things.
No, absolutely. I love the cinema. It's why like I go to the movie theater. That's why I did it. But I just think like if you have a gap and you're waiting for another project, like, yeah, maybe that's the mindset. Let's do it in 15, 20 days, and then you can do something.
Oh, we can make you a micro series.
All right, let's talk.
That could be a first collaboration.
And you're not purely about cinema, right? You're also, I mean, I can see references from the VHS area, for example.
Yeah, and I made a video game too, so I don't do just films, and actually that's what I really want to do, is just keep making video games, but it's harder. I mean, film's great too, but...
So you're doing cinema instead?
Yeah.
While you're waiting for your real dream?
Kind of, yeah.
Will that get easier with AI?
I would say OBEX has parts of being a video game as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it started because I wanted to make a video game and of OBEX, and I kind of was like, or I want to do something new. I want to make like a video game movie that was, you didn't know if it was both, but then I don't know how to do that, so it just became a movie instead, but yeah.
That might get easier with AI though too, right? I'm thinking. Like I'm sitting here thinking like soon we'll have like brilliant 19-year-olds with one computer making genius films because of that. So yeah. It's coming.
There's a question right here. Hold on one sec.
Yeah, talking about doing the micro series and producing for the web, I'm guessing. A few weeks ago, I don't know if you received the newsletter of Lucas Shaw. This is a Bloomberg entertainment newsletter. Anyways, it was stated there that his projection was that the smaller the screen was, the higher the profit would be. And so I was wondering if there is any economic model or cost system that you are thinking of, or that you ideate, not specifically you, but you are trying to get into, to get into that mindset of reducing the screen in order to get bigger profits while you're the producer. So
they're producers. No, I haven't thought it through financially. I heard a really sad thing though. I hear that like a bunch of retailers, so it's going to be capitalized pretty soon. Like a bunch of retail companies are getting into the short form content because of marketing for their products and profitability. But yeah, I guess there is a profitability there. Yeah. Either if you're selling the things that you're showing or through distribution on various channels and a lot of people watching on their phones. Yeah.
The smaller the screen, the greater potential for profit. It's such an interesting thing. It makes me just want to like go down to like less than an inch, you know, like we're going to make so much money on this like tiny little centimeter screen.
But if you keep going, it's going to get so small that it's invisible, which certainly is where we're headed. And then it's going to be, which is some weird combination of like the AI, like just like the computer-ness of existence that, again, I think is dark-sided, and like, but like generally, I'm not thinking about profitability because I'm an artist. But like, yes, I can see how the smaller the screen, the more the profit. I honestly would be happy for the screen to get so small that it disappears and we don't even do that anymore, and we like get back to theater where like we're doing things in person, and yes, we're telling stories, but it requires humans to tell them. I think that would be like cool if we came full circle again. I think that was like when things were healthier, when we were sitting around a campfire and just like telling a story. That was maybe the good days, the good old days.
Because also not only screens getting smaller, but there's this idea of second screen, you know, where the shows are like taking that into account, like we're going to say things 3 or 4 times because people are on their second screen, so the information, they don't have to pick it up the first time, the second time, the third time they'll finally get it, you know. And I'm guilty of that. Sometimes I'm watching TV and I got like my iPad down here and I got my phone over here and you're just kind of like scrolling, you know, and you're just like, what am I even doing, you know, like. Yeah.
Maybe people will get oversaturated and then the pendulum will swing back and they'll want like a really calm 3-hour art house movie at the movie theater.
Right.
There's a question right there. Right there, yeah. Oh, there's 2.
Oh, sorry, I'm Katharina from China. So echo back to all the conversation. I think I pretty much have a lot of insights to share about that. So TikTok. About like short series, so the commercial model is extremely profitable in China right now. So I must say it's not only retailer doing it, it's also the, I could say, Chinese version of Netflix. They are doing it a lot, and you couldn't imagine how profitable it is. So I could tell you extremely example of it, like they could give the cost back in 3 to 7 days after the short series online, and the most like hottest one could get 1 million cash back in 1 month. So there was definitely a trend, but I think the good part is they make content could you know to give money to the creator, but the sad thing is a lot of arbitrage. So I think there was the good side is you can earn money from it. The bad side is I think they need good content, good editor, to make the short film not only trash but also the interesting stories. That's the thing I want to add. And I'm a post producer for Honey, a China movie. We have a premiere today, and also
more
sorry,
promotion.
It's not pitching. It's not pitching. Yeah. So my question would be, like, I'm an international producer, so probably the only Asia face here, I assume. So, like, international independent, how you're suggesting, like, I work with you, because we have really, I could say, cultural gap. You would say because you two work really close, you grown up together, you have really that deep bonding, right? So I'm a new face here, and I'm not studying for China, but I probably much have a really different childhood and career path. So how could I to build a good connection with and the trust relationship at international producer? Yeah, that's my question. And I always like start if I'm solo, so it's going to be independent.
Well, I mean, there's a bunch of international co-productions, and I think, there's just, yes, there's different upbringings and different cultural mindsets, but I mean, we all have really the same deep human emotions, and I think a good story, like you said, if it's good and if it's edited well and if it's acted well and written well, then that'll touch people across borders. I strongly believe that, and so, yeah, I've worked on international co-productions before and plan to do so in the future. And you've approached me, so you've done it already. I have your contact.
There is this term that is a real term of co-production. I made a movie in Warsaw, Poland last year as an independent. I guess it's American independent because I'm an American, but I just went there and did exactly the same thing I do, whether it's in Baltimore or in Warsaw, which is I brought my camera out and I asked people to stand in front of it and say lines. And so, like, it's not like a part of a system where it's like not like real. Certainly has resulted in a real movie, but like they are real connections, and like these collaborators, we have now made a movie together and got to know each other better and like planted meaningful seeds in the earth. So like as you are out there trying to figure out how just to make more connections, it doesn't even have to be through any existing systems. Again, that's like the beauty of where we're at with technology, both with the cameras and airplanes. That like you could just, the fact that we can so easily fly to another country, you could, like, aside from the fact that yes, some countries might not let you in, but like if you can get into it, like you probably very easily could find some people who you get along with and make something together, and that's the beginning.
It's actually really interesting that you asked that question and that you all answered that way, because the section that your film is running in the International Independence used to be called American Independence. And years ago, FilmFest München decided to change that, because what is an independent film now? And so many films that you would call an American independent is technically not necessarily an American independent. So we felt that connection to other countries way more to really talk about what independent films are and to have them running in one section. So that's just to add to that. So you will find many of those in that section, and a lot from a lot of different places, treating a lot of similar stories in very creative ways. And I think that we are already running out of time and we could chat forever, but I think you will all be around for a little longer, so maybe we can continue the conversation outside. And I would just say, Pete, Albert, Anna, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your work. Watch all the films, and thank you all for joining.
Thanks.
Thank you.